If you're a comedian, you have to protect free speech.
Yeah.
There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And when it comes to this argument, the Biden administration was terrifying for free speech. They were actively attacking people that were posting truth on social media.
You know there's fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. The American people have sensed this and they feel like there's corruption, but I think they've just hopelessly kind of surrendered because I'm a middle class mom who works, who has a kid, who who has time to fight this?
Joe Rogan is on a no-holds-barred streak, calling out Democrats for the political mess many believe they've led the country into. In a fiery episode with comedian Bridget Fetisi, Rogan highlighted what he sees as over-the-top woke politics and deep-rooted corruption. The exchange was explosive and unfiltered. If you enjoy candid, tough conversations that challenge the mainstream, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next.
Like a big part of the whole left-wing narrative that has overlaid our country over the last, 8 years, 10 years, is all propaganda funded by our own government.
That's right.
This is why Trump won the election. People don't really believe in these things. The amount of people that think that transgender biological males should be competing against your daughter in sports is so small.
Yeah.
But yet our own government was propping it up. And why are they propping it up? Because it's a beach ball at a concert. You keep it tossing up in the air and everybody's distracted.
Rogan argues that the government didn't just endorse the transgender movement. It magnified it far beyond the small group originally focused on it. Why? He suggests it acted as a political distraction. While Americans debated culture war issues, bigger crises slipped by: a struggling economy, rising crime, and a border under strain. Rogan compares it to a magician's trick: flashy distractions in front, while the real problems unfold behind the curtain. In his view, Democrats mastered this diversion, packaging it as justice while leaving the country in deeper trouble.
As long as you can keep a few things going, here's the things you got to keep going. Abortion, right? Gay marriage, that's a huge one. They're going to take away gay marriage. Oh my God, bounce that beach ball. In the meanwhile, they're just siphoning billions of dollars. Zelensky just said he's missing $100 billion in the $177 billion that we supposedly sent.
That was something weird too about Haiti, where it's only 2% of the money actually went there. It's great. Americans give away a lot of their hard-earned money because they are actually kind-hearted and want to donate to countries that are, and then you find out it's some trans performance. There is a lot of nonsense.
A lot of nonsense.
In another segment, Rogan pointed to what many Americans have long suspected: that cultural debates were used to mask massive financial mismanagement. Billions meant for disaster relief may have been redirected, he says, toward political projects. Headlines filled with culture clashes left little room for hard questions like, where did all that money go? But now, whistleblowers and leaked documents are bringing those concerns into the spotlight. What was once dismissed as conspiracy talk is starting to look like a serious issue, and it raises a bigger question. If this happened, what else is still hidden?
They talk about it like, oh, who cares? It's only $10 billion. You're like, you guys are out of your minds if you think that's going to be the argument that resonates with Americans.
Not only that,
who
how are you
cares
going to
if
say
they're
that?
pointing out $10 billion? Because they'll be like, oh, look at the trillions over here. But all of those billions add up. How are you even saying that?
When these allegations surfaced, Democratic leaders quickly pushed back, pointing fingers at Trump-era spending and claiming both sides were guilty of mismanagement. But critics argue the defense didn't stick. The public saw it as deflection, especially with new documents and testimony circulating. This time, the scrutiny wasn't going away, and many felt the excuses weren't enough to overshadow the evidence.
I'm grateful that you had me on MAGA State Media. Thank you for allowing
you had to get that out.
Because I see it all the time. All the time. And it's hilarious to me in light of how much money goes to funding. sponsored by Pfizer.
Yeah.
All of these other the audacity to accuse you, who just has people you like on your podcast, to suddenly be state media when you literally have had state media working with the state in conjunction for a decade.
Yeah, at least, and probably a lot more.
Rogan himself has also been labeled by critics as leaning toward MAGA media. But as listeners know, his show isn't scripted by any political party. He invites voices from across the spectrum and lets conversations play out naturally. The irony, Rogan points out, is that much of mainstream media, from MSNBC to CNN, often aligns with Democratic talking points. It's Rogan who gets painted as dangerous. For his fans, that label doesn't hold up.
Trump was just sort of like the accelerant. He was the gasoline that got thrown on the fire, so we got to see like how this thing works.
I voted for him.
I did too.
I came out
openly. I endorsed him. I was like, "This has got to stop. This is crazy." Also, he's not what you guys said he was. He's just not.
I was Hillary in 2016, no one in 2020, and Trump in 2024. So, I don't care how people vote. When people do whatever you want. I was only being honest, and it was weird to come out and say that as a comedian, because I don't think that comedians should really be political. But on the other hand, it felt dishonest because I had been so openly kind of torn about voting for him.
It's clear now, Joe Rogan and others have distanced themselves from the left, not because of a random shift, but because the movement no longer resembled what it once promised. What started as a hopeful call for progress, many argue, turned into something restrictive and inconsistent. For Rogan, the turning point was free speech. The left claimed to champion open dialogue until he voiced opinions they disagreed with. When he questioned aspects of COVID-19 policies and treatments, major media outlets ran stories that painted him in the worst possible light. To Rogan, this was proof of something bigger. Instead of protecting free expression, the left had become quick to censor those who stepped out of line.
They were actively attacking people that were posting truth on social media and attacking them and trying to get their posts removed, including the guy who was the one who was quoted in this book about Kamala Harris, saying that we made it difficult for her to come on the show, and they told a untrue story about having a bunch of people come down here to do a run through the set like they were ready to do it. All bullshit. That was the guy. He was the guy that was emailing Twitter and saying, how is this post, being super aggressive, saying, why is this post still up? Oh, you mean that truthful post?
Yeah.
About vaccine injuries and side effects?
Now, about the Kamala Harris situation, here's how Rogan lays it out. When talk began about her appearing on his podcast, her team dismissed it by saying Rogan wasn't ready to host them. Later, they added another story, claiming they once stopped by a studio, but were turned away because Trump was already booked. Here's the catch. According to Rogan, no request was ever made. No call, no email, no outreach at all. The supposed conflict never happened. To him, it looked less like miscommunication and more like political storytelling designed to avoid scrutiny. And in his view, it's part of a broader pattern. When cornered, some leaders don't just sidestep the facts, they rewrite them.
I've interviewed many detransitioners. Those interviews keep me up at night. They haunt me. There's too many of them already, and one is too many. And I think a lot of Americans were like, we're putting a stop to this. We have to stop this nonsense. It's crazy. We're sterilizing children. The other thing is free speech. And I was like, when we're talking in our weird, using that crazy YouTube language you have to use, unalived, and you're saying the jib jab or whatever, to get around. Yeah. That's coming from one side.
This is why so many people are pushing back against extreme progressive policies. It's not just a matter of disagreeing. It's about real lives being affected. Across the country, detransitioners are sharing painful stories about choices they now regret, decisions they say were influenced by cultural and institutional pressure. What they were promised as empowerment turned out, for many, to be life-changing in ways they never anticipated. Now, they're speaking up, warning others about the consequences they faced. They feel let down by the very institutions that claim to support them, and their testimonies raise serious questions about accountability and responsibility.
And what it is, is an enormous slush fund.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And unaccountability and money just coming and going and flowing. And it's
circular.
All circular. Donating to the Democrats. The United States government funds them. They donate to the Democratic Party. The whole thing is wild.
And people can sense this. This is why when they're saying, oh, it's like, you can sense that there's been a misappropriation of our money, of taxpayer dollars. You know there's fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. The American people have sensed this, and they feel like there's corruption, but I think they've just hopelessly kind of surrendered.
Beyond culture debates, the Biden administration has also faced repeated accusations of corruption. Critics argue that large institutions, like Medicaid and USAID, were misused as financial pipelines to serve political goals. At the same time, leaders publicly emphasized integrity and transparency, presenting themselves as guardians of moral authority. But behind the polished speeches, allegations tell a different story. To many, it looks like a double standard, preaching virtue while cutting questionable deals behind the scenes. The growing gap between rhetoric and reality is fueling skepticism, and more Americans are beginning to question what's really happening behind closed doors.
The argument is that the internet is right-wing, and that this is why Trump won, is because all of these influencers are red-pilling people, and not, it's an easy way to not take any responsibility for how you've pushed men away from your party, how you've failed to get moderates in any sense of the way. Even just yesterday, you had the Trump photo op with him signing the rights for women to compete against just women. That is how
crazy.
Did you, how
He's
did you
the big
lose
feminist. Donald Trump's the biggest feminist president ever.
President Trump is off to a roaring start, and the nervous energy among Democrats is impossible to miss. For years, his critics have been waiting for that one mistake, a misstep, a scandal, anything they could spin into a week-long media frenzy. But so far, it hasn't come. Instead of stumbling, Trump has been stacking up early wins, driving the national conversation and putting his opponents on the defensive. They wanted chaos, but what they're getting looks more like control. They expected disaster headlines, but they're watching polls move in his favor. Behind closed doors, you can imagine the scene. Campaign staff whispering, shuffling through new strategies, rewriting talking points that no longer land. Out in public, they keep up appearances, but in private, it's clear this isn't going according to script. And maybe that's the real fear. Not that Trump will crash, but that he'll keep cruising. Because every day he stays sharp, the usual attacks lose their edge. Narratives that once defined him are starting to wobble. The outrage cycles don't pack the same punch, and voters are beginning to notice results over spin. The longer this continues, the more obvious it becomes that some critics were never rooting for the country to succeed unless they were the ones steering the wheel. That reality is setting in, and it's forcing a reckoning. If Trump keeps this pace, the political landscape won't just tilt, it could flip entirely.